Tonight, we honor the stories of those who've served and the legacy they leave behind.
From the man who tapped hope into the walls of the Hanoi Hilton to a Korean War veteran whose quiet bravery shaped a life of service.
And from a World War II nurse whose service shaped a lifetime, even after her husband's Navy career ended too soon, to heroes who dedicate their lives to uplifting soldiers every day. Their voices, their legacy, their courage. On this Veterans Day, we pause to hear the stories behind the uniforms.
Good evening to you, everybody. Thanks for being with us. And on this Veterans Day, we pause to hear the stories behind the uniforms. Moments of courage, sacrifice, and dedication that define a life of service.
And from those who served overseas to those who continue their mission right here at home.
NBC4's Kyle Beachy begins tonight with a World War II veteran, Marie Drukker, who decades ago was just beginning a life well lived.
At 99, she is as sharp as she is inspiring and just as fun.
In February, I'm going to be 100 years old. So if I hesitate and have to count on my fingers, something you ask me, well, then you'll know.
Marie Drukker has called Central Ohio home for over 60 years, but her story didn't start here.
I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and my grandfather had a meat and butcher market. We used to walk over to the shop, and my grandfather would always be waiting for me.
She was raised in the Great Depression. Even as a child, she never let tough times dictate her future.
I was 7 years old, and I can remember standing on the corner from where we lived to cross over the street to the shop and thinking, I'm 7 years old, there isn't anything I can't do.
That phrase stuck like a proverb. Drukker took it with her through high school and into the Army.
I went through high school, had a good time in high school, and had lots of boyfriends. And so then finally the 4 years were up, and one very close friend of mine and I had decided to go into nursing. World War II was going on, and they offered a stipend if you would sign up to be in the Army. And of course we all did. They paid, I think it was $75 a month stipend. And that was nice because most of us were poor.
Drukker worked as a nurse and traveled recruiting others to join Army nurses. She never deployed, instead waiting for her fiancé to return home from the Navy.
I was engaged and going to be married, but some of the girls went, and they went right to the Philippines. As a matter of fact, I lost two of my friends there. If I had stayed and been deployed, that's where I would have gone.
Then that familiar phrase from childhood appeared once again.
In 1945, the day that the war was declared over, I was standing, looking out an operating room, big window, waiting for the doctor to come in, and just thinking, I can do anything. And I always carried that motto.
Marie married her sweetheart, Bill, who was, in her words, a brilliant engineer.
We moved here with 4 kids in 1959 and built a house in Worthington. Somewhere along the line, then I had 2 more.
She's called Ohio home ever since, raising 6 kids and then enduring tragedy.
My husband was 57 and passed away with a heart attack. So I was 53 years old with 6 kids to raise and educate.
That motto she lived by since she was 7 was needed again. Drukker went back to work, running a nursing unit at Riverside Hospital for 30 years. Indeed, she can do anything.
Why is that an important thing for you in living your life?
Well, it is important, and it became really more important, and I think maybe that's the only reason I remember it so well, is because when Bill passed away. And there I am with 6 children. I can do anything is something that's kind of stuck with me, because I thought, what if I couldn't do everything? What would happen? You know. So, as it is, I'm very fortunate.
At 18, he wore the uniform. At 93, his story still inspires. When we come back, Korean War veteran Frank Baldwin shares his reflections on service and understanding. Frank Baldwin hails from a rural area near Savannah, Georgia. The walk to school was 7 miles each way so he could have a better life. His mother put him on a train. Destination, Columbus, Ohio. That's Frank Baldwin when he was about 18 years old. It wasn't that long ago.
No, not to me. But, yeah, but.
He had just arrived to Columbus's east side along Mount Vernon Avenue, and this is him now.
There's people everywhere. I said, oh my goodness.
93 years old. Baldwin served in both the Ohio National Guard and the U.S. Army. Although he never deployed, Baldwin is proud of his efforts during the Korean War in a segregated unit.
The way they did things, you know, they kept you separated. You know, your cafeteria was separated, training was separated. But we knew it wasn't right, but we tried to be the best. See, as long as you were the best, people were going to look at you. So that's what my outfit did. They did the best job they could do.
He trained and worked at several military bases.
Ammunition, guns, rifles, tanks, half-tracks. I was on a half-track for a long time.
Including Fort Hays in Columbus.
All the bad stuff came back to us. We had to redo bad stuff. Our outfit had all the used stuff, mostly. And we'd put it together and then we'd use it ourselves. And then what we didn't use, we could send it back, see.
At Fort Hays, now home to high school students in Fort Hays Metropolitan Education Center, Baldwin says workers fired guns in the pit where he worked, and the noise was extremely loud.
I didn't know I had problem in the ears until I went into VA not too long ago. And they said, well, you can't hardly hear. I said, I never noticed it, but I know my ears would ring.
After his service, Baldwin went on to work at Westinghouse and later in maintenance at Ohio State. Today, he often reflects on how his time in service taught him to give people, especially those who don't look like him, a chance.
It's kind of hard when people don't understand things, but it's what people tell other people, and it blends into their mind. Yeah. See, you got to learn things for yourself.
It's true. Baldwin says some of his military records and those of others he served with were discarded. He hopes they will be recovered one day.
Each generation of veterans carries the same thread of service, a deep sense of duty and purpose that never fades. For some, that call to serve continues long after the uniform is hung up.
Dr. Ed Horvath answered that call not once but twice, first as a young Navy officer and then again decades later. Roosevelt Leftwich with our sister station in Cleveland shares how his journey became a lifelong mission of service and mentorship.
He was my boyhood hero and really my only true hero. He was one of the most genuinely good human beings I've ever encountered in my life.
In 1942, not long after Pearl Harbor, Edward Horvath lined up with hundreds of other young men to join the Army. He felt it was his duty and responsibility as an American to defend his country and be a part of something a lot bigger than himself. Edward Horvath Sr. passed along that sense of duty to his son.
The Vietnam War was going full blast. It was 1967, and I think there were 500,000 troops in Vietnam. One of my classmates from high school had already been killed there. So I called my father, who had been in the Army, and asked him what to do. And he said, well, you probably should get a commission in something.
So the next day, Edward Horvath Jr. walked into a Navy recruitment office and told them that he was a med student and wanted to serve. He was commissioned as an ensign and was in the Navy through med school and residency. But by the time he was called to active duty, the U.S. involvement in Vietnam had ended.
And about 2 months later, I was married at the time, but 2 months later, I got my orders to report to the Navy Environmental Health Center of all places in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Ed did his time and left the Navy. He and his wife raised 3 children, and he worked as a medical director for BP and later General Electric. His time in the military was behind him, and then 9/11 happened.
My boys finished college, or finished high school, excuse me, and both went in the military. They asked me, what are we supposed to do now, meaning we're at war. And I told them that their grandfathers that served, I'd served. I didn't go to a war, but I served honorably nonetheless. It's your turn now. You don't have to do this. Your doctor's kids, your children are privileged. I expect you'll defend your country.
Both of Ed's boys joined the Navy and are still serving. But a week after he had that conversation with his sons,
I was sitting in my office and thinking, they need doctors. I missed my war, and I'm going back in.
So now, what age are you at this point?
57.
he first called the Navy, but they turned him down. But Ed persisted, and a few weeks later, he earned a commission in the Army Medical Corps. He was deployed 3 times. The first was mostly stateside, but for his second deployment in 2008, he was sent to a frontline hospital.
I was sent to the 325th Combat Support Hospital in Camp Spiker, which was right in the last areas where Al-Qaeda was fighting U.S. troops during the end point of the surge. There was fighting going on literally a mile or 2 from us. And it was there that I dealt with people bleeding out, traumatic injuries, amputations, head injuries, things that you don't see in civilian practice.
By his third deployment, Ed was in charge of all U.S. military medical facilities in northern Iraq, but still did his time in the operating room treating soldiers and Iraqi civilians. By the time he left Iraq for the final time, he had seen enough of war, but hoped that he had made a difference.
And when you get to be a certain age, you wonder, what was your purpose in life? What was your mission? Did you do what was expected of you? And I can say that I did.
He's written a book about being an Army doctor and has endowed a military medical scholarship at Ohio State. But he's most proud of the work that he's done over the years mentoring young men. Ed says that comes from his own dad, who helped guide his life. And Ed hopes his experiences will also help guide others.
One of the things I do with young men I mentor is tell them, you have a mission in life. I can't tell you what it is. You have to find it for yourself. And you're not going to find it by staying home playing video games. You have to engage the world, and you'll find what you're supposed to do.
From a pizza shop to the Pentagon, a story of purpose, pride, and service when we come back. What started as a simple conversation at a pizza shop in Mentor, Ohio, became a lifetime of service, leadership, and sacrifice. For more than 2 decades, Master Sergeant Jennifer Ballou proudly wore the uniform, and even after retirement, her mission to serve has not stopped.
It's really an interesting story because no one in my family in the recent years served in the military.
But for more than 2 decades, retired Master Sergeant Jennifer Ballou wore her uniform with pride, serving her country, leading others, and building a life defined by honor and purpose.
I worked at a local pizza place in Mentor, Ohio, Little Caesars Pizza, and one day one of my coworkers came in and said she just joined the Army. And to me, that was a foreign language. What does that mean?
That unexpected conversation set the course for a 21-year career, one that began when she was just 17 years old.
I walked into the recruiter's office one day and decided that that's what I wanted to do.
Ballou's parents weren't sure what to think at first, their daughter choosing combat boots over college, but over time, pride replaced uncertainty.
They weren't super excited about it, I think mostly because they just didn't understand what that meant. But once it came down to it, they were extremely proud.
Retired Master Sergeant Jennifer Ballou's military path began in 1994, long before 9/11 changed the face of service forever. She trained at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and later became a dental assistant stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. But like many who serve, her role evolved from assistant to leader, managing entire healthcare facilities, supporting soldiers across the globe.
From the very moment that I got there, I knew that that was what I was going to do. I loved it. I loved the discipline, the teamwork, the structure.
During her time in uniform, she not only found her calling, she found love. Jennifer met her husband, Omari, while they were both stationed at the Pentagon. Together, their shared service became the foundation of their marriage.
My husband, Omari, served for 29 years. I served for almost 21 years. So together, that equals whatever the math is. Military service members are like-minded, and so I don't know, it just kind of makes sense that I would fall in love with somebody who believes in service just as much as I do.
After retiring, she says it took time to adjust. The military had been her identity, her family, and finding purpose beyond that world didn't come immediately.
When I retired, it was initially not super clear that I wanted to stay connected. So I sort of dabbled in some other work, but really quickly realized that I wanted to be connected to the military and continue to serve.
Now she serves in a new way as Chief of Staff for the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation. The organization is responsible for building a national memorial in D.C. honoring all of those who have served since 9/11.
It's an organization that was designated by Congress to plan, fund, and build a national war memorial in Washington, D.C. in honor of all the men and women who have served and sacrificed in the global war on terrorism.
Beyond her professional work, she's also served locally at the National Veterans Memorial and Museum. She's also a certified life coach, helping veterans rediscover themselves after service, guiding them through the same transition she once faced.
After you do that for so long, it's a part of you. And I don't know, at least for me, it's not easy to turn that off.
Through it all, she says what she values most about her years in uniform isn't the medals or the rank, it's the relationships.
I always struggle with like the one thing or the biggest thing I took from service, but what's coming up for me is relationships and just the importance of relationships and teamwork. And, you know, when you have those deep relationships and you know that the person to your left or your right will literally do anything for you, they'll die for you. It's almost hard to put it into words, but that's something that I don't know people outside of the military have ever experienced or could understand.
And as the nation reflects on Veterans Day, she says the heart of every veteran, whether they served 1 day or 30, is selflessness.
If I think of veterans across all services, across all eras, the thing or the thread that comes to mind for me is that we're willing to put service before self. So it's not about me. It's not about any of those people that we're talking about. It's about whatever the mission is, whatever you're told to do, there's no questions asked. You just do it.
From a pizza shop to the Pentagon, that service doesn't end with retirement. For her and for so many others, it's a lifelong mission.
Whether somebody has served for 1 day or 30 years, they have raised their right hand and taken the oath to serve our nation, which is, in my opinion, the most honorable thing that you can do.
When we come back, how a code of taps helped American POWs survive and stay connected when everything else was taken away. During the Vietnam War, hundreds of American servicemen were held prisoner at the infamous Hanoi Hilton. The prison was built to isolate, to separate the POWs and break their will.
But inside those concrete walls, a quiet resistance took hold, and it started with one man and a tap.
The rule of silence, they did not want us talking to each other. They're trying to keep us completely isolated so they could break us. So the rule of silence was the guards couldn't hear any sound out of any cell. It was like you went from right now where you are, okay, and just imagine you're taken and you're put in a coffin, okay? And that coffin is above ground. It's like a master bedroom closet. Now the big thing is, you can't talk to the United States or your family. You can't tell them you're alive or dead, and they can't talk to you, okay? You are isolated. You are dead. To this world, you're dead.
The idea was to keep you isolated, keep you separated, let you know that, by the way, you're going to die here pretty soon, and you're never going to go home. So all hope is gone. Give in. Tell us whatever we want, you know.
We tried to use Morse code, you know, but that's hopeless. Morse code doesn't work when you're tapping through thick, concrete walls.
Part of our training in fighters was to go through a survival training program. And while I was there, I was in a class and a master sergeant happened to be the instructor, and he was explaining how in World War II, prisoners held by the Germans were able to communicate between two buildings by tapping on a water pipe. And I said, how did they send the dashes? And he said, oh, I should explain, it was not the Morse code, it was a tap code. They were not teaching it as part of the program, but I just happened by chance to learn it from this instructor. And I was able to communicate that tap code to some other POWs.
Smitty Harris, who was POW number 6, was in a place they put initially all of us as sort of a holding place so they could interrogate us. And Smitty said, "Hey, new guy, who are you?" And I told him my name, and he said, "Do you know the tap code?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Drop the K out and substitute C." And right away I could picture it, 5 lines.
I was in my cell in a bumpy room, and I hear this on the cement. So I go, So I go back and I go, and so then I started to hear this, and I'm thinking, okay, there's a rhythm here, and I learned the tap code that way. It was a lifeline. It was a lifeline. And so I tapped away the next 4 years or whatever was left of my tour, and it was a lifeline for all of us. And so Smitty is a hero who brought the tap code in, Smitty Harris, and we all learned it, and it gave us that boost that was so nice every day.
Incredible.
That is amazing, isn't it?
For sure. Every time I hear that story, I'm just amazed. The faces and voices we met tonight remind us that service doesn't end when the battle does.
Yeah, some carry their courage quietly, some through memory, some through walls of concrete and silence.
And so to every veteran we heard from and every veteran watching, thank you for your service.
And as we leave you, we remember Colonel Carlisle Smitty Harris, who passed strength from one cell to another and who died this past July. Good night.
Thanks for watching. For more NBC4, download the NBC4 streaming app. You'll get free 24/7 local programming streamed straight to your living room. Just search NBC4 Columbus on your Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Roku, or Samsung device.